Hi everybody, you have Pauline here with Zentail today with another Ask the Expert session. I am excited to be speaking with Michael Krakaris from Deliverr. Michael, hi, how you doing?
Hey Pauline, good to be on.
Awesome. For those of you who don't know, Michael is one of Forbes 30 Under 30 lists on the coveted list, as well as co-founder of Deliverr. They offer an FBA-like fulfillment for channels such as Walmart, eBay, Shopify, Wish. Looks like he's had a fun past from all of the photos behind him there. Yeah, we're excited to have you on, Michael.
Yeah, out of my parents' home, which is great.
Very good. I should have looked into this a little bit more, but any chance that you guys started, out of your parents' basement or garage there?
Yeah, this is actually where it probably started. Harish was working out of his house, I was working out of mine, and probably right at the beginning when I got my first apartment in SF, so it was very early, I was just moving in. I don't even think I had a bed frame in my apartment at that time.
Exactly, yeah. I was going to say that I wouldn't count you as a real startup if you didn't start in some way, shape, or form in your parents', like living room or something. Okay, cool. So we've got the digs down for how you started. Tell us more about why you started, right? What were you looking to solve with Deliverr in the early days? And I guess, has that changed any now?
Yeah, so, initially, when I was at Northwestern, my last summer, I interned at a company called Twilio. And Twilio is a cloud communications company. And what they do is they power SMS and video messaging APIs for any type of business that wants to send text messages to their user base. And what was interesting about that space, I got to learn about the infrastructure as a service space. And people at the time, you had software as a service, and that was like companies like Salesforce, HubSpot, and stuff like that, which was becoming very popular. But this was this new space of infrastructure as a service that I found really fascinating with them. And because what they did is they went to a space like the telecom space, which if you had tried to send messages to users beforehand, before Twilio, you had to deal with AT&T, you had to deal with Verizon and a bunch of other carriers. And then each country had a different set of carriers. And then also carriers have different performance in different regions. So certain carriers are really good in the West Coast, certain carriers are good in the South, because it depends on how they've set up their own physical infrastructure. And that physical infrastructure is very hard to set up. And the performance is very different. And so for a user, when you were scaling, you had to negotiate contracts. You had to negotiate contracts with a bunch of them. You had to ensure really strong performance, and then you had to rinse or repeat as you kept growing. And so they applied software to that world, or infrastructure to that world, and a very simple, clean set of APIs where you could use as much or as low as you like, and it was pay-as-you-go pricing. And so companies like Uber and Lyft were built off of that infrastructure using Twilio to send messages to drivers and riders. And that was really really interesting and fascinating me. So I left, finished my internship and went back for my last, quarter at Northwestern, and then, went to a company called Symphony Commerce, which was really interesting at the time because actually kind of a perfect primer for anyone in e-commerce. They built the full commerce stack for e-commerce brands like Pepsi, Gatorade, and really big brands like that who were just starting to go online. And so they built the website, they did the inventory management software, and they built integrations into warehouses. And so I got to learn about how the website is built and hosted, and how to build a strong checkout flow, how that integrates into the inventory and order system, and finally, how the warehouse piece operates. Nice. And what I saw about the warehouse piece is that it reminded me a lot about the telecom space pre-Twilio, which it was, you had to negotiate contracts with each warehouse, each one had varying performance, each one was strong in different regions, and every time you grew, you had to rinse and repeat the whole process. And so these companies needed to have entire operations teams who literally just did that. And that's where you had the idea. And, I met Harish at Symphony at the time, and he was very fascinated with the Stripe model. And at the time, you had these two big, really fast-growing companies. It was Stripe and Twilio, who were at very similar stages, right? And so, I'd come from Twilio. He was very interested in the Stripe model. And so, we kind of bonded well over that. And had the idea around Twilio for fulfillment, and the initial slide I put together, I went on Wayback Machine of Twilio.
Nice.
And went from 2008, or 2009, when I think Jeff started the website, and just took their benefits. They just put the 3 benefits of Twilio, and then I just took it, and then I took out Twilio and put in Deliverr, and then took out messages and put in orders, and that was it.
Perfect.
And so, yeah, so that's how it started. And then as we kind of, went into the journey and started Deliverr and all this stuff, got in the office and cool. Then after that, we started thinking about this other element around speed. And that was more unique to this space because, if you look at like Twilio or Stripe, speed's not too much of an issue. Because, you're just sending a message to the PSTN or you're collecting payments, which is typically fairly quick. Here, though, in commerce, speed's a really big piece, and it takes a while for physical stuff to move. And so we made the bet fundamentally that the world was going towards 2-day and next-day delivery, even outside of Amazon, which at the time was not super popularly held. And even now, you definitely have a lot of pushback in that area. And so that's where this idea around asset light, not owning the warehouses, and positioning inventory very close to buyers came through.
Nice.
And so in that, you got the three benefits: clear pricing, easy onboarding, and this element of speed.
Exactly.
That's how it's evolved to what it is today.
Okay, nice. Awesome. Thanks for the thorough background. And so you kind of mentioned a couple of key pieces there, which is performance, contract negotiation, speed, like you're saying, like the concept of asset light and, looking at the infrastructure as a service. And so I guess, how does Deliverr handle all of that? How do you handle like SLAs with your channels and warehouses? How do you guys go about all the contract negotiations? What does that look like on your end?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly complex. It also depends on the warehouse. And so you're going to negotiate, contracts with different warehouses, and they're going to treat you someone like a Nordstrom or a Macy's. So you come in as like a really big retailer with very clear requirements, and very clear, inbound guidelines, outbound rules, and things like that. And it comes in two pieces. You have operational components that they need to do, and then also software requirements. And on like the operational piece, it's, for example, you need to be able to read these types of barcodes. You need to be able to receive them these SLAs. You need to be able to ship out items in these SLAs. And then on the software side, you need to have APIs for this, APIs for that, and so on and so forth. And everything, they essentially have a minimum set of requirements that they have to meet to be able to come into the network. And then they go through thorough testing. And as they come in, what we do is we bring them in very slowly. So we turn them on, then we turn them off, then we turn them on, then we turn them off, and we gauge performance. And as they start performing well and they start getting more and more volume coming into the network. One thing that you do, though, because you have a lot of optionality, is that the warehouses that perform the best get the most volume.
Yeah.
So for the warehouses that are the quickest, that are the cheapest, they're going to get a lot more volume. And so it is creating an ecosystem for warehouses to play in, for them to get volume really purely based on performance. And for a lot of these warehousing companies, because this is actually very distributed, it's a little bit different from Twilio, where you only had 4 major carriers. Here you have thousands of these different independent warehousing companies. It's very tough for them to get new business and to do sales and marketing and bring in new merchants. And sometimes it can also be because of regional issues. You could have, they can be very big in the Southeast. Well, most merchants are in California or New York. And so it's hard for them to really get their name out. And so this is a way for them to not have to run any sales and marketing, but get really strong business.
Absolutely.
Which helps fill like that excess space they have, whether that's 20 or 30% of their business. And so that's kind of how you do it, and how you ensure strong performance, because as they perform well, they get more business, right?
Exactly. Nice. And so you mentioned that, Deliverr is kind of treated as a larger retailer. So if I was a smaller brand, right, if I was like starting Amazon, let's just say I made like $2 million a year, and I wanted to then kind of have some warehouse space, go multi-channel, what would that mean to me as like an independent person trying to contact a warehouse?
Yeah, so you mean if I'm just a seller and I'm just going to go directly to a warehouse?
Right. So like pre-Deliverr.
Yeah.
What did that look like?
It was pretty brutal, and that's why you didn't see it a whole lot. The most common thing that you saw with sellers is that they tried it and it didn't go well, or they just start shipping out of their own garage, or they start using multi-channel fulfillment with Amazon to fulfill orders until they got banned by the sales channel that they were using it for. Yeah. And so typically if they were going to a warehouse, they would have to negotiate a contract beforehand. And so they'd have to talk through what their expected volumes are. And if it's outside of Amazon, a seller has no idea what their volumes are going to be. So, and then that's the initial friction point. And so let's say half the sellers don't even make it past that. Half of them do make it past that. For the half that do, they're just guessing. And typically when they guess, they say 10% of their Amazon volume.
Yeah.
We see that's not accurate. If you're certain verticals, you can get to 30, 40%. If your other verticals, you're under 10%, it could be 3, 4, 5%. But because I guess that became some industry standard, they just say that. And so they're saying that volume, which oftentimes is inaccurate. So then they would get pricing back from a warehouse. And the warehouse is also saying a commitment. So saying you have to send in this amount of inventory. You need to commit to this amount of orders, or else we're getting rid of your inventory.
Yeah.
And the pricing comes in a lot of different buckets. You would have a receiving fee, which is hourly, which if you've ever tried to dispute a receiving fee, it's insane because you have to go through the logs of every single person receiving your items. And let's say you think it should be 24 hours, but it ended up being received in 48 hours. You have to see a log of every single person who was receiving to see when they took breaks, when they didn't take breaks, what else was going on, and then challenge that. And let's say like most sellers are 1, 2, 3 people. You're not going to do that, right? These are the things that like Gatorade was doing with warehouses and stuff like that, which is really difficult. So you have a receiving fee and that's hourly. You have a pick pack fee. You have a box fee. You negotiate the boxes. So they would say, we have these boxes, but you say, no, I want to use these boxes. And they say, well, I can't get these boxes. Well, what if you buy a box machine? No, we're going to import boxes. So you get in this whole thing around boxing. You have a shipping fee on top of that. And so then you start arguing, should it be on my account? Should it be on their account? What service provider it is. Oh, I want you to go on UPS. Well, we only deal with FedEx. And then you have the different zone. It would be going, it would go on depending on where the buyer's going to. So your shipping fee is very variable. And then you have storage fees. And storage is unique in that it's not per unit. They're basically charging you per bin. So they're saying how many bins you're going to fill up, and you don't know how many bins you're going to fill up because you're just per unit. And so anyway, that's kind of the basic stuff. And then on top of that, you have to charge for if you want an account manager, dedicated support and stuff like that. They'll charge you that hourly or monthly.
And then, like you're saying, do it again if you want to be in a different warehouse.
And then you got to do it again and again and again. And then also the warehouse doesn't want you to go to multiple warehouses, right? Even if that one, let's say that warehousing company has 4 warehouses in their network. They want to put you in one because that's easier for them to track. When you go to multiple, it's harder. And so for them, they're trying to optimize the amount of revenue out of a fixed asset they're paying on. And so they don't want to spread you out at all. But you as a business, you want to be spread out because you want to get faster delivery speeds. And so there was a fundamental misalignment in that space, which is why you saw so many merchants going out to 3PLs, not even getting started with them, and either shipping it out of their garage or relying on Amazon for these other channels where you had a lot of other issues because things were going on Amazon boxes, things were on Amazon tracking, and that was creating a lot of friction with a lot of these channels to a point where you had guys like Walmart say you just can't use that anymore.
Exactly, right. Okay, great. And so you mentioned kind of like quickest and cheapest, right? So speed and price. What else is something that's like important that you keep an eye on for your customers? So as the service you provide, you make sure that, right, we're living up to SLAs, that people are having the 2-day delivery, getting great rates. What else is something that is important for your customers when working with Deliverr?
Yeah, I would say ease of getting started is a huge one, and self-serve. And that's something that was only really FBA was something where you could get self-serve, you could learn how to use it, and they had its YouTube community, and you could figure out, okay, how do I get started on it? At any other 3PL, it would take a minimum 4 to 8 weeks to get started. And with Deliverr, you can sign up, and we automated that entire process to get started. And that's a lot of work to be able to do that and to be able to set that up and be able to create that translation layer between a warehouse and a new seller and get them to be able to come in very fast. And in a situation that we've seen in the past few months where, like FBA not taking non-essential items or limiting the amount of quantities you can send in, you certainly see moments in time where urgency is there and where they need to get started very fast. And sellers are able to get started on our platform, 72 hours, 48 hours, which is pretty much like unheard of for a fulfillment service because you're moving physical stuff from one place to another. But they were able to do that. And that's because it was self-serve. They didn't have to talk to anyone. They didn't have to, fill out any contracts or questionnaires or anything. They literally just get the product, send it, and go. And that's really, really important and really critical. And I think if you take that one step further and you say, okay, but hassle-free going forward, what you also started seeing in this pandemic was that each month was like a different quarter, where first month you have vitamins and supplements going extraordinarily high in volume. Second month, you see home going extraordinarily high in volume and art supplies. Third month, you have now apparel outdoor going very high in volume. And so as each section went really high in volume, these are items that all of a sudden are going 10x what they typically could. And imagine if you're doing that with your own warehouse, you have fixed labor, you can't make that happen. And if you're trying to use multi-channel fulfillment, anyone who was trying to do that with Amazon over COVID, I mean, you're getting deprioritized because they've got their Amazon orders that they have to deal with that had all sorts of, we're going through all other sorts of scaling issues. And so if you look at that, I think what you can see is that the ability to just be able to scale with those businesses and be able to take, an item that was doing 100 orders a day and now it's doing 1,000 orders a day and be okay. And that's what the Deliverr model was able to do. We found out items that were moving very fast. We started transferring them out to more and more locations dynamically. And because you're asset-light, you have a lot of nodes. You have 35 plus nodes in the network. And that's how you're able to take on what were extremely high and rapid influxes in volume.
Yeah.
And then the last part is now layering that in, getting more predictive intelligence around what we think is going to hit, what we think are going to be the high volume categories, so we can be more proactive around it instead of reactive.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack there. So question around obviously like all the fluctuations that happened really rapidly. How did you guys handle that? How did you work with your sellers? What did you communicate to them about like inventory, demand forecasting? And then, candidly, were there any hiccups in the road?
Oh, I mean, there were huge hiccups in the road. I mean, if there are any logistics provider, any e-commerce provider who's gone through the past 3 months is going to be lying if they told you there weren't any hiccups. Yeah. Whether you're Amazon, Walmart, eBay, Deliverr, Shopify, I mean, everyone has been put through the challenges. I mean, if you look at the gains e-commerce has made in the past few months, I mean, it's just remarkable. And
20, 30 years.
Our systems are not typically, our systems are set up for Black Friday, Cyber Monday volumes, and that happens every day at the same time in the year. Everyone prepares and you start preparation in Q3. All of a sudden you start seeing that level of volume with no preparation out of nowhere, and that puts so much load on the systems, and you kind of saw the impact it has.
Yeah.
For us specifically, number one is that you had this unpredictable category demand, and this was partly, though, we did get a little bit lucky because we were starting to build category intelligence within the Deliverr network, starting to understand what categories we think do well. So we were starting to already figure out that, hey, certain categories are prone to very high volumes in certain times of the year. So we didn't get as hit as others might have. But you certainly have unpredictable categories. Like, for example, we had an item, we had zinc in the network, and we were fulfilling not just the Walmart, eBay orders, we're also filling the Amazon orders for this zinc item. An Us Weekly article comes out maybe a month, 2 months ago now, and it's saying zinc helps prevent your immune system or prevent you from getting coronavirus, which comes out of nowhere. There's no scientific backing on it or anything, and you typically use the supplement for something completely different, right? And the merchant has no idea about this coming out, and then all of a sudden, 3 hours later, you're seeing thousands of orders just pouring in for this item. Yeah. And we're fulfilling it across all channels, and it's the number one zinc item online. Just the number one item. It's the number one featured item on this article. And yeah, that put a ton of load on the system. That happens on a weekend too, when warehouses typically aren't working. So that point onward, most warehouses in the network had to be working on weekends, especially if they were handling these, what we call surge capacity, these extraordinarily high volume items. And so that was very unpredictable, and that puts a lot of load on the system. Number two is you had on the warehousing side, one of the most difficult challenges, which you had employees getting sick, or workers getting sick, not Deliverr employees, but warehouse workers getting sick. And that was extremely difficult and worrying. And I think what you saw was a labor shortage. You had both the warehouses did not want to hire because they were concerned that people looking for work could be sick. And you also had employees not wanting to go to work because they thought, okay, maybe other workers may be sick. And what would happen is you had to put in all sorts of precautions that you had never done before, right? So we had to extend receiving by 24 hours because CDC came out with guidelines that buyers could sit on cardboard for 24 hours. So now everything has to sit by at least 24 hours. If you think about our receiving, how much inventory is coming to Deliverr, a 24-hour extension is a huge backlog. That adds a ton of additional time to receiving, even though to someone else that might not seem like a big deal. When you have so much volume moving through a network, any extension of a day really piles on. And so that was not great. Then you had to take temperatures of everyone. You had to give them PPE in the warehouses. And then when you did see a COVID case, you had to shut down the warehouse. You had to schedule deep cleaning, make sure the warehouse was running through a deep cleaning. And then you had to figure out, okay, how do you reopen it? Are we going to redistribute it to other nearby locations, or do we think it can reopen within quick enough so that we can keep inventory going? Now, we were, in some cases, lucky because we had so many different warehouses in the network that we could transfer stuff, and we mirror SKUs. So a SKU, if it's in one location, it typically is in a lot of different locations because we do 2-day, next-day delivery. And so we weren't hit as hard by it, but certainly, it came up with challenges. And where we had to basically repurpose this severe weather system that we had built, like if a warehouse gets destroyed from a hurricane or shut down, we basically had to repurpose that overnight to handle this, which is really tough. And then the last piece was the carrier side.
Yeah.
And on the carrier side, that was really difficult because you saw like carriers were getting a ton of load from all the e-commerce volume coming in, and you had to start diversifying your carrier mix very rapidly and trying a lot of different carriers. And you saw the performance was very different regional, especially in COVID hit states. You had to be much more diverse on your selection of carriers because even they were seeing the same thing with low employee turnout. You're seeing more theft, a lot of things on the carrier side that were really difficult. So across those three elements, warehouse, carrier, and on the sales channel demand side, it was extraordinarily difficult and continues to be, a challenge. Not as much as it was maybe a month ago. Things have settled a little bit, but certainly most challenging time, from a scaling standpoint, from an execution standpoint, we've in our lifetime. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like you guys, and obviously everyone attached to you, went through a lot with everything with the pandemic right now. Sounds like you guys reacted as quickly, obviously, as you can, and had proactive procedures in place. So, obviously there were challenges, like you said, and bumps in the road, but sounds like you were prepared, and that's really all folks can ask for. So
it also, I think the other thing is, these events, they help you build, though, very good systems and very resilient systems. And so what it did, though, is it did accelerate a lot of things that maybe we had overlooked before, like diversification of carriers, like some of these procedures of transferring inventory very rapidly to different locations and load balance in the network that I do think really help the fundamentals of our business. And so, yes, it was a really difficult period, but it did really create urgency around things that are going to make it a lot better for the next few years. And so I do think these types of events do help you improve and get better as a company.
Nice. I love it. Makes you stronger. Very good. So diversification is definitely a buzzword to come out of the pandemic. I think folks, on the Zentail side, we're seeing tremendous interest in the diversification multi-channel effort, again, which is why we wanted to speak with you. Deliverr is, I've seen, expanding to a couple new channels. I would love to hear about that, what's kind of going on with Shopify and Wish, in addition to obviously like your Walmart and eBay traditional partners.
Yeah. So we'll try to talk about as many as I can. Some stuff's coming out soon. So
sneak peek, tell us.
I think for the most recent ones, late last year we launched a 2-day program for Shopify stores. And what was very unique about that program is because we control the badge, we've been fairly quietly but expanding our next day coverage. And so that we've made pretty big investment in that and pretty big improvements in that. And so this badge is actually both a blended 2-day and next day program, where sellers get 2-day nationwide and then they get quite a bit of next day coverage though. across the country. I think almost all the West Coast, and then we're adding in Northeast and Southeast very soon. And so what you're seeing there is really, really great traction. I think it was on a podcast with Shopify Plus maybe a few weeks ago, and we were talking about a few of the examples where merchants are seeing their acquisition costs really come down quite a bit. It definitely varies on the vertical. And what's interesting, though, is that a lot of times, like if you look at like a 2-day badge on a marketplace, you're not entirely sure how exactly buyers react, because the marketplace is kind of obfuscating some of that, because they're kind of doing their own testing and they're doing their own category management. They're creating the sensitivity of a 2-day badge on search. When you're putting it on your own website, you're getting an exact read on how the buyer is reacting to fast shipping or not, and can form your own sensitivity analysis to a dime on how sensitive they are and does this make sense for me or not. And that's been really interesting. So like for CPG sellers so far, you're seeing them half their CPA, which is insane. Like usually a 5% improvement in CPA is enough to really increase investment. Here you're seeing it decline by 50%, their cost to acquire, when they're putting 2-day or next day on a consumable item. And then even with apparel, you're seeing declines, not to that extent, but you're seeing reduction. And so that program's been really extending, which has been great. There's going to be more improvements to that program that are coming out of the summer that we're really excited about. And then the other program is that we want to continue to invest on the marketplace side, come out with new programs there. And so we formed a partnership with Wish early in the year. I think we talked about it in February, just first announcement that we were integrating, we were building that out. There's a lot of different pieces to that partnership. We right now integrate into Express, which is their 5 to 7 day program. And then we are announced on Tuesday, we're building a 2-day program that you're going to start seeing on the Wish app, 2-day enabled items over the next few weeks. We're going to be rolling that out. And you'll see that more at scale for holiday across a lot more selection on Wish. And so we're really excited there. I mean, there with Wish, that when we first met with them, they gave us some of the usage of that app. It's incredible. I mean, the #1 most downloaded shopping app in the US for 3 years now, I think is pretty wild. And just the usage is incredible. And I think the biggest challenge that they've had is really breaking into the US merchant base. And that's something that they really wanted to expand and get into some of these higher priced items with faster shipping. And that's really where we come in. We have a lot of that selection and some of the fastest moving items outside of Amazon with fast shipping that hopefully are going to resonate really well. And so we had some initial results that we talked about earlier this week. We had California Home Goods, I think we listed. We also listed like Bow Toys, who's a Zentail seller, and some of the improvements they're having. You're seeing this logarithmic growth for these sellers on the platform already. Which is really good. It's a really good sign and showing really promising, kind of like the early days of our Walmart initiative, kind of giving me reminders of that. I think there's even further you can go just with the growth of that ecosystem. So
yeah. That's awesome. Really exciting. Agreed. When you get to really kick something off and see immediate growth, you know that you're doing good things. So that's awesome.
Yeah. It always starts with the first few items. The first few items pick up, then you have something there. It's like with Walmart. The first item that I put on Walmart 2-day, I think ever, even in Walmart marketplace terms, we put the first item on 2-day jointly, and it was a Pureology shampoo. And the item, like when I did it, I was like, oh man, I could not have picked a worse item. It had not done a sale in the past 60 days. And then we put it online with 2-day, and then in the next 6 hours, it did 6 orders.
Oh, wow.
And so then you're like, okay, we need to find some more items and we need to get this going.
Exactly.
And then,
nice.
and then now we are.
So, Michael, candid question about kind of Walmart and more of your established partnerships. Obviously, the kind of like what you're saying, the opportunity for being there first was pretty huge. You guys have grown a ton. Now that there are more sellers with that 2-day flag, more sellers working with you, are things getting more competitive on those marketplaces? What does that mean to them?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. You certainly see. You're kind of, if you look at the adoption curve, you're kind of now getting to a little bit further down the curve. I wouldn't say you're at the late adoption phase, but you're kind of near, getting near the peak. for certain verticals. I think certain other verticals are very underpenetrated on Walmart if you look on the two-day side. Predominantly because we have not supported batteries is a really good example. And so electronics right now is very underpenetrated because we just don't have a lot in our catalog right now. But if you look at other categories like health, home, beauty, some of the core ones that, you have a ton of saturation on the Deliverr side. You see a lot where a lot of the sellers have moved to two-day. And like you can go to a page on Walmart and that entire page is Deliverr sellers at this point, or at least 75%, 80%, because the initial sellers that came on Deliverr were capturing a lot more sales. And so that pushed down the sellers who weren't on Deliverr. And so then they had to come adopt, right? Very similar flywheel to what you saw with FBA. I think though, what kind of has happened is that you do see a little bit of reduction on the early movers. Initially, you're maybe seeing 3-4x improvement in sales with two-day. And that has come down. I think Walmart talked about they gave some established numbers. We're on a webinar maybe, 2 weeks ago. And they came out saying it's around 38% now lift in sales, two-day versus standard. And I think there's kind of two ways to go from here. Number one, though, is because more items have two-day on Walmart than they did before we even launched this initiative together. What you have now, though, with all this influx in volume coming into Walmart is that overall the marketplace is growing because to a buyer, it's much more attractive. So yes, it's not a 4x, but you still have an increase in sales because overall the marketplace is much more attractive. And most importantly, those categories are a lot more attractive. Because the category before, sitting all standard shipping, now Deliverr all is free two-day, it's a much more attractive category to the buyer. Buyer's more likely to transact. Number two is that you have to get faster. And so that's where, obviously things have been a little bit delayed with everything going on with COVID, but getting towards next day and getting to these next speed levels that we think are going to help propel volume. Nothing I can talk about right now, but obviously
I was ask you if next day was in the roadmap for the near future.
Obviously things are being discussed, but we can't talk about specifics, unfortunately.
Sure. Wink, wink. Got it.
When we have timelines, well, trust me, you'll be the first to know. We're happy to share those timelines when it becomes available.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Cool. So I think back on the Walmart note, I think there's questions about, obviously you guys have been really strong partners to this point. They've made some announcements too with fulfillment, things like that. What does it mean to Deliverr and, the shared user base? Yeah,
absolutely. They came out with their own fulfillment service, WFS, I think, Walmart Fulfillment Services. It's a fairly, newer program they're piloting with. And, sales channels, I think, will always try. And they will always, try to pilot, fulfillment services and there will probably be usage for them. And I think even Wish, had fulfillment by Wish before we even approached them. And even now, they're very, very open to this. I think it really depends on the seller. If you're going to use WFS, you're going to use Deliverr, or if you're going to use Fulfillment by Wish, you use Deliverr. Because when you look at something like what a WFS brings to the table, it works really well if you're just going to sell on Walmart. And that's what it's there for. It's there to help you if you're just going to sell on Walmart. But if you want to sell in a lot of different places, it's not going to help. It's not going to put a two-day badge on your Wish listing. It's not going to put Fast and Free on your eBay listing, right? It's there for Walmart. And we believe outside of Amazon, for most sellers, maybe not all, some are just, primarily Walmart sellers, and that's what they're going to do. And then WFS makes a lot of sense. But we think for the majority of Amazon sellers, when you look at their volume outside of Amazon, it's very fragmented. It's very distributed across a lot of these channels. So you're getting a little bit from Walmart, you're getting a little bit from eBay, you're getting a little bit from Wish. And actually, like if you look at Zentail sellers, they're like the most distributed across probably all of our sellers. They're very, very distributed. They have a little bit kind of everywhere, right? Yep. And in that model, these sales channel fulfillment services don't make sense for them because then you're tying in inventory with a specific sales channel when, again, you have very unknown idea around your volume. Like I mentioned at the beginning, that 10% is not really accurate. It really depends on the channel, what your selection is, and what the existing saturation is on that vertical. So for example, grocery might do great on Amazon, but it's not going to do well on Walmart because the 1P selection is incredible for Walmart.
Yeah.
Versus supplements or very mainstream products like like Pureology shampoo won't do well on Amazon. It will do great on Walmart, and it'll do okay on Wish. So you have these very differences in sales trends, which make it very difficult for you to tie inventory to a single channel. So that's why I think, like, even with Walmart, if you go to a Walmart account, you see WFS and you see Deliverr account, and a seller can pick. And if you think you're going to be doing a lot of different channels and you want to do Walmart and eBay and Wish and maybe even Amazon FBM, then I think Deliverr makes a lot of sense. If you've got one SKU on Walmart and that's it, and that's just a Walmart specific SKU, and that SKU flies and does 100 orders a day, then WFS makes a lot of sense. And you can see that with the initial sellers that are coming into WFS. And the other thing, which is a little bit unique, you have sellers doing both, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't know why. I think they're just kind of trying it out.
Are they trying it out with the same products, or are they trying it out like diversifying their inventory? I guess, for an example, my understanding, Michael, is that, Deliverr handles really well kind of the smaller, items. And so if I'm a sporting, whatever, apparel seller, I'm going to sell my golf balls to you guys and some like t-shirts, but the clubs and the bags would go to WFS, let's just say.
You're seeing that. So we've seen that. I think even the same product, I guess sellers are trying that out. I'm not really sure why. But I think the important thing, though, is that there's in terms of the ability to sell through or the ability of visibility, there's no difference between if it's in WFS or it's in Deliverr. It's the exact same. You get a 2-day badge, and that's really it. But you do get them trying out different things. Also on the selection side, you see price differences, like on the heavier goods, because Walmart retail is very strong on the heavier side versus on the lighter side. You see that as well. And so, I think it's a lot of mix and matching and trying out different things for sellers. But yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see how this evolves over time. But we kind of see the world outside of Amazon is getting more fragmented, not less. You also see Buy with Google coming out. Facebook and Instagram launched this bombshell announcement 2 weeks ago with Facebook and Instagram shops, which is, I think, massive for the space. And I don't see it getting more consolidated. In a world where it gets more consolidated, that makes sense. And putting your inventory with a certain sales channel makes more sense. In a world where it gets more distributed, it makes less sense.
Yeah, great perspective. And I agree. So I have one last question for you, and then I want to get into a little bit of fun here at the very end. So let's see, last question for you. Everything we've talked about has primarily been about, current online sellers looking to expand beyond, but, normally the normal B2C route. How does this change for truly going like D2C? So I'm a manufacturer, and for the first time, again, right, because my retail stores have no foot traffic, does the conversation change at all for them?
Yeah, that one's been interesting. I think we've been obviously approached with a few these really large kind of Fortune 500 brands that are in store. And I think for them, it has created a level of urgency where they have to start looking at an online strategy and have to start looking at legitimately putting in some money into the online piece. I think initially they had viewed it as online as something to kind of support our stores. And I do think that needs to change a little bit, where maybe even the stores need to support online. And there needs to kind of be a balance, and you need to have a level of diversification there. I think, unfortunately, you are going to see a section that just can't evolve. And as with any big trend, any big movement, there's going to be a subsection of merchants that just cannot change their systems, and they will go away. Or they'll just be significantly stronger or smaller than what they were pre-COVID, or really pre-e-commerce boom.
Right.
And then you will have a subsection that do find a way and do find that urgency, and they do evolve. And it's certainly going to be painful for those companies to do that. It's going to be a lot of work and a lot of moving parts to be able to make it happen. But I do think you are seeing a fundamental shift there, where it is evolve or die. And that's and you're seeing that with all these brands. And if they're telling you that's not right, they're all looking at their balance sheets, and you're seeing earnings coming out. They have to evolve.
Exactly. So yeah, we've definitely seen some more interest on the D2C front as well. Fulfillment is always kind of the first question. I'm curious, Michael, if you guys are keen to any of the what's next, right? So their team needs to adjust. They have to, source potentially from the stores, et cetera. What else is going on in the minds of these D2C explorers?
Yeah,
call them?
I mean, they're looking at, a lot of different things. They're also looking at online. Does it make sense for someone to transact on their website, or do they put it on marketplaces? Or do they do a combination? Where they put the selection? That's a really big thing. They're also thinking, how do you use the store versus how do you use something like a Deliverr? Do you use it for different types of SKUs, different types of assortment? And so it's a fairly complex rollout for a lot of these brands. And so I think we're going to see some big moves ready for Q4. It's been I think there's certainly a lot of open items still to be covered over the summer as we get into this. And then I do think we are going to see some pretty big movers as we get into Q4 because that's where, you need to make up this revenue somehow.
Yeah.
And you are going to see them figuring out certain ways. And so each one's going to be different. I think it depends on where their store footprint looks like. It depends on their vertical, if they have high returns, low returns in terms of how they leverage Deliverr. Because each one is kind of thinking about it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Oh my God, you mentioned returns. That could be a whole other topic. But as promised, that was the last question before we get into the fun. Are you ready for a little rapid fire here?
Hit me. Let's go.
Do it. Okay. Michael, what is your morning routine?
Morning routine. I wake up, I cook 2 eggs, have guava juice every morning that I buy, and then check my email, check Slack, check the news, check our daily metrics, growth metrics, and then I'm into my first meeting, which is sync with all account managers to understand where we're at from a client standpoint.
Nice. Very good. Cool. Conversely, what keeps you up at night?
I would say issues on the execution. If we have fires, bugs, big issues going on that we haven't yet resolved or we don't yet have a path forward, that will definitely keep me up at night.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Hopefully there's not too many of them on your side. Tell me about who has been a great mentor for you in your life.
Great mentor for me in my life. I have a few, and they're actually very, very kind of random. I would say in terms of people I've interacted with very well, my freshman English teacher.
Nice.
Even though I was not an English major at all, not very strong with that. I would also say high school tennis coach. That was really helpful. It taught me about work ethic, working extraordinarily hard and pushing the boundaries on my, on your physical body, right?
Yeah.
And then I would say, someone I've always been really inspired by in terms of their thinking, Peter Thiel. I've read 0 to 1 a million times. I even met him once and he signed my book when I was in college. And then also Jeff Lawson at Twilio. I think he's really inspiring, and a lot of things he pioneered with Twilio are things that I've taken and learned with Deliverr.
Very cool. Very nice. I love it. Yeah, especially I think in the startup space, we all love a good Peter Thiel story. Silicon Valley, the whole thing. So I love it. Yeah,
and then conversely, we ended up, our first investor was 8VC, and that was Joe Lonsdale, which is his co-founder from Palantir. So that was pretty cool. Small world.
Awesome. Nice. All right. So again, kind of looking back a little bit, knowing what you know now and considering how far Deliverr has come, what advice would you give to yourself 2 years ago?
Pay attention to the details and always be calm. Even in the worst moments, you'll always find a way through it.
Fantastic.
Always figure a way through it.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So now you are the expert, Michael. What would you tell a small, seller team looking to operate at a larger scale if they're looking to grow quickly?
Yeah, absolutely start looking at other channels. If you're hitting probably $250,000 a year in revenue on Amazon, and we're going to talk about this, in a few blogs on our website. Figure out where people discover your product, where they transact, and how that item needs to be fulfilled. Yeah. And if you can figure that out, the rest will kind of follow through.
Yeah, makes sense. Great. Okay. What is your favorite food?
I have to go with good medium steak.
Very nice. Very good. What is an item on your bucket list?
Swim with dolphins.
Excellent. Can't argue that. We got into this a little bit, but can you tell us what does the future hold for Deliverr?
Yeah, so expect to see new sales channel programs coming in over the summer. We have one really big one we're just very excited about that should have been announced last month, but you had COVID kind of delaying things. It should come in sometime over the summer. And a move for us getting towards faster and faster shipping. And so we've been quietly expanding our next day coverage. Expect that to grow considerably as we prepare for holiday this year. And those, I'd say, are the two big things.
Cool, fantastic. To the moon, Alice. Do you have any COVID goals?
COVID goals. Do you mean like personally or as a company?
Surprise me.
So personally, I've been doing rehab on my back for like several months. And so this is actually good because there's not a lot of like crunch spaces and I get to like stand up and walk around. So it's good. My COVID goals are getting to a point where I can play tennis again and sports again personally. Maybe get a tiny bit of a tan, though I'm challenged in that area. I would say for the company, we're hiring a lot of new people. We're almost approaching we'll be at 100 people very soon. Making new employees feel welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely something I think everyone's trying to address in these times when everything is virtual and you just kind of get like a random hello through the screen. So nice. Yeah. But again, 100-person milestone, that's really exciting. So congrats again. And last question, Michael, COVID is a thing of the past. What is the first thing you're going to do?
First thing I'm going to do, definitely go get a drink with my friends.
Cheers. I love it. Awesome. Michael, this has been tremendous. We've learned a ton. It's been a good conversation. We look forward to all the announcements in the future and can't wait to, again, working with you on all of our shared goals here.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.